Okay, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm really excited to welcome you to this conversation with the amazing Eugen Jebeleanu. I will introduce him in a little bit, but just to remind us that this is an event organized as part of the Romanian Film Festival in Seattle, which is on its 8th edition, together with Arizona Romanian Film Festival and ARCS Detroit, and is hosted by Northwest Film Forum online, and it's streaming across the nation, and is bringing us about 23 new film productions from Romania and Europe, which are all excellent, short and long format, showcasing the creative spirit and resilience of young and more established directors and covering a wide range of genres. So welcome, and let me introduce you our wonderful guest today, who is Eugen Jebeleanu, a Romanian film and theater actor and director. He was born in 1989 in Timișoara, Romania, wow, at the revolution. And he graduated from the National University of Theatrical Arts and Cinematography. In 2007, he plays the first role in the movie Cu un pas înainte. I'm not sure how it's translated in English, maybe like a step forward. And he works in Romania, Germany, and France. Since 2010, he has been staging fables that deal with social issues, political and social subjects, in order to question the notions of social norms, identity, and freedom. In 2010, he founded Campania 28 with Yann Verburgh. Within this company, between 2010 and 2015, Eugen wrote and directed several shows. Since 2016, he has been associated with the National Theatre of Sibiu. And he recently took his first step in cinema, directing his first feature puppy film, which is streaming now and can be seen until the end of the 21st on the festival's site. And he currently works with the Théâtre de la Ville for the Chantiers d'Europe and with the actual festival. There is more, and there are links there to explore a little bit more of Eugen's wonderful work. So welcome, Eugen. It's really nice meeting you.
Thanks, and it's nice to meet you too, and thanks for the invitation, and I'm glad to know that the film is in your festival.
So briefly, for folks that do not know me, my name is Mariangela Mihai. I am also Romanian and a filmmaker and an anthropologist. I work on social issues, and I co-founded Ethnocene, which is a filmmaking collective for women of color and queer filmmakers. I happen to also teach, this semester transnational queer media making at Georgetown when I'm doing a postdoc. And so just to let you know, Eugen, I've watched your film with my students, with my colleagues, like with different kind of audiences that are like American based, but also international, because I wanted to see what they notice and what they don't notice, what is lost in the translation, the cultural translation, and what kind of seemed like an universal relation between the audience and your film. So I will start with a question that maybe it's a little bit about the politics of filmmaking in Romania. And that is the issue of funding, right? So we know that as Romanians, we know, but maybe our audience doesn't know. In Romania, filmmaking has been a little bit of a, let's say, closed club, a little bit of a domain of the elites, and funding is difficult to access, and it's also politicized. One thing that we know about marginal stories is that they're often hard to make and hard to tell because mainstream media and mainstream funding is not made for these stories, right? So can you tell us a little bit about your entrance into making this film, and how did it came about to be funded publicly in Romania, which is like a little bit of a shock in a way?
Yeah, we had the chance to have the funds from the National Center of Cinematography here in Romania. And that was also surprising to us because of the topic of the film, of course, and the society here with this topic. But I think because as the event, the real event of the story, it was happening into a cinema hall, and there's something that we cannot make abstraction. So it was something that happened for real. So it's maybe putting more interest to the people also that choose in the jury to fund that film. I think so now. And I had this big chance also to have a very good producer that made all the funds and everything to be possible in this financial way of making it. And yeah, I was in fact invited to this project by my producer, Velvet Moraru, who called me one day and she proposed to me to read a screenplay and if I'm interested into directing it. And so that was the beginning of the story of Poppyfield. And it was, well, my first time in cinema as a director, and I was a bit afraid, of course, of what I will do, but I felt responsible to talk about all this. And as in theater, I'm already working a lot on this topic. I thought it's the moment to tell something about into cinema language and to be more visible somehow, because cinema gives this possibility to show it to a lot of people and abroad and in other countries. And yeah, we kind of had the big chance for the funds, but I know that there are still problems with this kind of films that are on this topic, and I hope it will change soon. I had, for example, in theater, when I worked on this kind of subjects, problems to have funds, and I was struggled by this.
Great, thank you. This actually makes me wonder about something that takes us out of the realm of the film a little bit. But since you just mentioned that you worked on stories in interior form that had to do with queer issues, is there a parallel of the kind of maybe difficulties or fears that you experienced as a first-time filmmaker on a queer topic, as with debuting as a director, right? Doing the same thing many years ago.
Yeah, I didn't had fears about the topic because somehow I know what it's to be a gay person in this society and in this country. So I wanted also to be somehow very honest with my own story and what can I bring to fiction inspired by my own life and problems I have lived. But yeah, I was of course thinking about the representation of the people, and I was thinking how I will put characters not to be into some kind of positive and negative characters, because I think it's something that can be very easy to do, and I was paying a lot of attention to that, mostly on the cinema scenes where there's so many people and all these Orthodox people, they are interrupting the screening. I didn't want neither to put them into a composition way of making characters or something like this. So I just wanted to let the audience to decide and to see all this madness that it's happening there, but without without trying to manipulate somehow his intellectual or his feelings. So that was in the topic way of how I worked for this film and the questions I had, and not so many fears at that point, but mostly maybe on the technical things. But I had a real great crew with me, and DOP that he was very, how to say, patient somehow, and at the same time in a good relation with me, because he came to all rehearsals I did before. I haven't changed my way of working with the actors, and he was the one, for example, that told me that not to change from how I'm working in theater, just to be aware there's a camera all around and can be a like 360 degrees audience in a theater hall. So, and I have rehearsed like for months with the actors, and even if I was afraid of the beginning of not having the language, the technical, yeah, as I said, the knowledge, I was very well protected by my crew. And yeah, Marius Panduru, the DOP, did a great job, and we still worked together after for theater projects, and will, of course, and I hope we'll work together soon.
Thank you so much. And speaking of the crew you work with, if I understood correctly, you actually had worked before with the actors, right? In other circumstances. So you had the relationships already built there, and you kind of knew each other's modalities of working and thinking with storytelling, right? I'm curious about the crew also actually from a different angle, which is, you know, so I'm thinking if this film was made by like a dominantly queer crew, if everyone was queer on this crew, how would this film look like? Would it look different, for example? It's a question that I had when I was watching, and I wonder how you thought with that while you were making the film. Yeah.
Of course it would have looked different. I'm sure about that. And I think that's why Velvet, for example, the producer, and Ioana Moraru, the screenwriter, came to me, because they knew that I am a queer director. And I'm sure that that was the first thing for choosing to invite me to make this film, because I am, yeah, a gay director, open in Romania, and I think that was important for them. And for me, I was not thinking choosing the people in which are their sexual orientation or their identities. I just tried to take what I felt it was the best from what I knew, from what I found to put there for making this story being the more honest, as I said. And so everybody I have chosen in the cast or in the crew, it was because of beautiful connections and working together. And as you said, I had a lot of actors that I already worked with in theater, and I wanted to promote that in a way. And of course, it was giving to me also a kind of protection for my first film, not to be just with people I don't know before. So yeah, of course it would have been different, the film, even if just one actor of the distribution was someone else. So it's changing everything, because it's changing perspectives and perception to the audience.
Yeah, thank you. I asked this question because there is a politics of representation, right? So to tell a queer story with non-queer actors, there can be a question there of like how close you actually are coming to that truth that you are trying to represent. But it also speaks to how many queer actors are there in mainstream Romanian theater that you could draw upon to involve in the making of the film, and DPs and whatnot, who I will argue that would bring a different kind of sensibility and a different optic to the film. Whether it's better or not, it doesn't matter, but it still will be different, right? As you also mentioned. So that's really great. I wanted to talk a little bit with you about how amazing the tension that was created in the film about visibility and invisibility, right? About being out to yourself or out into the world was created slowly, and it built up to this really emotionally intense scenes in the cinema itself. And I was thinking about that retrospectively, that there were traces throughout the film that basically kind of enculturated us in this film. It was not something obvious, not like nailing it, nailing it in the head in the beginning. So you paid a lot of attention to subtleties in terms of how the actors would approach this. And I want to ask you about that. How was that relationship with the actors in the way they were playing, and your directorial vision on how to build their characters to be subtle and ambiguous enough to make us question all the time?
Yes, so I would start by talking a bit about Conrad Mericoffer, the actor from the main character, because he's an actor I've already worked with, and I really think today he's maybe let's not make a top, but one of the greatest actors in Romania. And I think that he brought to this character, as you said, this kind of ambiguity and subtility, how you said, subtility. And I think that it was very special, because Conrad, he's a person that is very rich inside, intellectual and emotional, and he has this mystery that I really liked when he came to the auditions, because I have seen, of course, some other actors, and what I liked most to Conrad, it was first the simplicity that he brings, and in the same time you can see in his eyes, in his way of listening, in his silence, a lot of trouble, a lot of how to say, vulnerability, and in the same time violence somehow. So yeah, he was for me the best option on playing this character, because of all that inner tension that I wanted for the main character, to bring a conflict inside, because I think that maybe that's the main theme of the film, this internal homophobia that he has. And I think that is something that we don't speak that much in Romania, and it's very important, because we live with all this how to say, baggage with us, and it's something that it's from the education, from our childhood, from our school, from our parents, and all that stuff. It's very difficult to live with, and that's what I wanted for this character. And for the other characters and actors and actresses I worked with, I tried, as I said, or to bring people I knew, but because of course I worked well with them, and to put something from their own vulnerabilities into what was that story to tell, and not trying to choose actors for some characters that I had in mind. Of course, Ioana Muraru, when she wrote this screenplay, and when we talked about, we had some images of how it should be, that person or that person, but I didn't want to search the actors for an image of a character. So I preferred to choose people I want to work with, and then to develop with them what the story can tell, with your opinion of the character, and how you want to invest your own personal story into what you have to play. And yeah, that's my way of working somehow. I'm trying not to bring the actors to the characters, but more to bring the characters to the actors.
Thank you. Your process is really interesting. I think for filmmakers who don't have a background in theater, it was surprising, everything in a way in the film you made, because it was almost like a live theater experience. At the same time, it was a film. So that beautiful conversation between these two modalities came through really great. So I was wondering, were there moments when you felt like actually it was coming apart and there were things that you had to troubleshoot along the way? Kind of like more details behind the scenes of how eventually it stuck together in this awesome fashion.
Yeah, thank you. So it was how to say, even if it was a lot of fears again because of how I will do, and mostly because of all these crowded scenes, and how we can represent also real life stories and events like this. So I was trying to be as close as I can to the images that were going on social media about these events when the screenings were interrupted, and trying to give this impression of ciné vérité, or something more documentary in the way of putting the image and the tension, but of course everything filtered by the main character. And that's why, for example, we choose with Marius Panduru and the crew to shoot on 60mm film, because we wanted something that is very a contrast in the colors, and in the same time, when you see the film in theater, in cinema, you have this impression, at least to me, it gives this impression on all the close-ups that you almost touch his face of Cristi or others. So it's giving some defaults of also of the details of a face, for example, and I like that. And also I choose to make the film mostly on long sequences like this, into this this way of shooting, because of course, to give the real tension of the story, but that's also a way of working in theater somehow, because you start a scene and you finish it, and it's not there's not an editing in theater that much. So, and in this film, there's not, of course, Cătălin Cristucciu did a great job for the editing of the film. That's not the point, but I think it was important not to one more time manipulate somehow the audience, not with artificial instruments that cinema can have, and people are doing it very good in the history of cinema. But I didn't want it, for example, to put music, to put some kind of a lot of tools that I didn't found necessary. And yeah, back there, I don't know, I was somehow in the same time very stressed but very relaxed. I think the conditions of the shooting were great, and I think that we all knew that we were there for telling the story because it was necessary to make it and to tell it. And that was somehow the way I tried to bring everybody together, by saying that we are responsible, and we have to be aware that what we are doing now, it's something that speaks about someone's life, and that can be in danger, and that can be in trouble, and that can change. I would have loved, for example, when I was a teenager, in troubles of discovering who I am, and into these two identities of not knowing what I will say about me and what I will live in my secret life. And I would have loved maybe to see more of that films in Romania, or to hear more of that stories. So I don't know something else what to tell in this idea, just that yeah, we tried, all of us, to put something very honest, I think, again, in it.
Thank you so much. It's really great to learn about your process and the relationships you had with your team. And what you said made me think about almost like a methods question, which is a lot of the folks I watched the film with had. Everyone really wants to know how you pulled off the protest scene, right? Because it was a long shot and it was so dynamic, and all these extras with their lines cued at the right time. The camera was moving really fast from viewpoint to viewpoint. It was extraordinary, like a choreography, right? A choreography that it was clear that it was not easy to pull off, but at the same time, perhaps it was for you as a theater director. Would you tell us more about that? How it happened with so many folks on set? Yeah.
Yes, I have loved. I think it was one of my most interesting days of shooting, because of course it's something big that you have to do and you don't know how you will manage. And I remember the morning of that day, and I talked with Ioana, the screenwriter, and I was, what I will do with all that people, and I was a bit scared about all that. But in the same time, yeah, as my background from theater, I think it was important at that moment, and I was not that how to say yeah, I didn't felt neither like there's something I cannot manage. I felt that I just have to be aware of everything what's happening, and to talk with the people, to tell them what I want. And when everybody knew what she has to do, it was very clear for everyone. And for example, for all the people that were in the extras, I have also propose them to choose in which part they want to be. So for example, I was not putting someone and say you are against or you are for. Just this is the story, and let you something from your inner life, from your inner thoughts, feelings, to come there and be in the field that you feel that you are now. Doesn't mean that you cannot change, or doesn't mean that it's something good or bad. It's just I want to see this dialogue, this discussion, this also not so peaceful discussion, but into this scandal also with their opinions. And somehow I try to not fake it, and just to let the people to express themselves, and not coming with my lesson of what's good and what's bad. Of course, I have an opinion, and I hope that we can see it in my film. But in the way of working with the actors, I think at least that we as directors and actors, again, we have to pay attention into how we judge what we are making, because we have to put questions and be there for giving to the audience that position of main character, let's say, and to choose. And yeah, it was difficult, of course, but in the same time, I loved to make these scenes, and I would do it more and more. And I like it. I like when there's people. I like also intimate scenes, of course, as at the beginning of the film. But I like also when there's conflict, because yeah, it's maybe they're the most close to theater tension, something that we have to fight for. And yeah, it was a wonderful experience to make that, and without any doubts of editing that scenes. It was from the beginning like something we said, oh, we'll make it a long shot and one shot, and that's it. And yeah, I enjoyed it a lot to make it.
Eugen, that is truly fascinating. If I understood well, what you mean is that you had all these actors and extras on the set, and he said, look, channel whatever you feel more aligned with at this moment, and let's go with it, right? And so in a way that probably, surely created this sense of just veracity. It felt so real, so honest, as you said, on the one hand, right? So I'm really happy I asked that question. That's quite amazing. And the other part is that I would argue that you gave the same choice to the audience to kind of, while in that space, to choose which side they're on. So by this moment of the film, there was this intimate relationship of the camera with Cristi, right? So we're kind of with him in his emotional space, but also at the same time a little bit distant from time to time. And then we enter the cinema, and suddenly the way the camera works, we are a participant, not just an audience only. We are participants there. So which side you are, right? Are you the folks wanting to watch a queer film, the queer folks that were there, or the anti LGBT activists? And you kind of have to make an emotional choice how you feel about it in the space. I assume this was willed. Was there a conversation about it, on how the camera will become one of the characters, one of the participants, and by extension us as audience?
Of course, because the camera is like a witness of everything what's happening. So from the beginning of the film until the end, and the camera is following our main character and just try to see very distant somehow the situation, and in the same time having all the time Cristi as a refuge, I don't know how to say, as someone you catch it in the middle of all these people and this crowd. And I wanted this because, as at the beginning of the film, we are very close on him and to his intimate life. We can say also that at the moment when they enter into the cinema, it's also our queer film that it's interrupted, because the first part of the film, it's a queer film. And after that, we can even, I wanted to lose a bit my main character into this big scandal, for rediscover it different, and how he will deal with all that. And so to say also that our main character is not a hero, it's also as everybody there, an anonymous person. And I think that is important to say that even if I'm trying to make by this story manifesto of fighting for gay and LGBT rights and for our freedom of expression, of course. So that's my opinion in what I'm telling, and it's important to have it before making this film. But in the same time, I wanted to show that the main character, it's a non-hero person as well, and his struggle, but he's also in the same time a victim and burrow, or how you say it's okay. It's a good and bad in the moment of the story. So he's not on just one side, and he's contributing at the end of all this homophobia society, because we don't know anymore if the intimate it's influenced by the political, or the political it's influenced by the intimate, and everything is together at that moment. And yeah.
In a way, this actually captures, it's kind of like radiography of the Romanian society, right? These tensions of capacity for extraordinary tenderness and connection, but also just brutal violence, right? And we see this capacity, but also manifestations throughout the film at different moments. And yet they're still so subtly realized. So for example, in the beginning scenes, when his sister comes to visit, right? even that scene, it's like so ambiguous. At the end, you don't know, is she a bad person or a good person? Did she come to support in her own way, or she came to spy and kind of say, oh, I know, like out him, I know you're gay or something like that. And you and your team applied this method to every single character in this film, which was extraordinary and complex, but also left us with no answer, which is the answer in the end, right? So how was that, figuring this balance for each of these characters? Did you have more trouble with one over others? Anything you can tell us about that would be great.
Yes. The scene with the sister, it's maybe not one of the most difficult into the way of shooting, but one of the most powerful for me, because it's something very close to my own story and my own life. And for example, this line that she has at the end of the scene when she's saying, I was just curious to see your to be a witness at your gay period. It's something so violent, and it's something that I have lived when at the moment I said that I am gay. My brother told me, in fact, at the moment, and he said, well, that's a period, that maybe it will pass. And so, no, sorry, it will not pass, and you cannot see it like this. And this is what I wanted to put in that character. And Chandana Trifan, the actress I worked with, I think she's making it very good in the way of how we can show at the beginning an intention of this character and what she wants there for making things going well and getting to know each other. And you have the impression that Cristi is completely fucked up, and it's just him that has a problem with everyone. And in the same time, you see that there's much more behind. And at the end of the scene, all the rapporturi, reports that they changed between them, and it's something that completely went in the other side. And yeah, I tried to put by this scene also something familiar, and to see how Cristi is under pressure because of all what he has as background in his life. And for example, when I'm talking about bringing things vulnerable and personal to the characters which the actors had to play, for example, the character of Radouan Leflahi, the character of Hadi, he came because I wanted, and the crew, the producer, the screenwriter, we wanted to work with Radouan when they have seen him into a theater performance I have done about homophobia as well, and we wanted to work with him, so we changed it in the screenplay, the story, and we put it with a French guy. It was not like this at the beginning, and as Radouan is a Muslim religious practitioner, he did into an exercise. I worked with them, an improv on that intimate moment of the prayer, of praying, and I wanted to keep it. And I said, I think it will give something very hard for Cristi to live, to see that the point is not just how religious you are, but it's what you are making with your religion, faith, and how you deal with, and the perspective.
I'm so happy you mentioned that. It's again, it almost passes unnoticed, right? If you look away and maybe even miss it in a sense, but it's such an interesting one because it holds meaning also in Romania's context. We are quite Islamophobic, right? There's that layer. I don't know, for a second, I even asked myself, is he asking himself if he's okay with his lover being Muslim, or is it more than that, right? Because it's hard to read. This was one layer. And the other layer was, and maybe it's just coincidence, but maybe there was a connection. As you say, you have changed the scenario and also the way you filmed with Hadi's character. He seems to be a character, well, a subject from ex-French colony, right? So kind of a colonized subject. Again, there's an ambiguity about that. And he's in a relationship with Cristi, who is a police officer, gendarmerie. That has a long history, right? In France, basically. So there's this tension, a conversation about what this transnational connection of policing and violence, and also, you know, the religious disparities between them. What else does it say? And what I want to say about that is, you know, first, if you can tell us if you had a conversation about these things in a way, and the next question, actually I lost it, so let's start there.
Yeah, we had a lot of discussions, of course, but we didn't want neither to everything what we did to be explained. So it was also something that came. I really, when I'm working even in theater or cinema, I don't know if I'm asking to your question, but I'm trying to. I'm not searching to come with all my tools from home and saying that's what I want in the way of aesthetic, that's what I want in the political manifest, or how to say what I have to tell, and that's what I want at that moment, that's what I wanted. So I'm really someone as an artist that is working with what is happening here and now with the people I work with, and I'm trying to get inspired by all that, and being somehow in I don't find the word, in confidence, that's the maybe, I don't know, giving the possibility of everything to come, and trusting, oh yeah, that's the trusting that everything what comes, maybe it's not, of course, what it should stay and be at the end, but there's something to take it for making a discussion and putting it farther. So I don't know, I'm trying every time to think about the context of where I'm working, and for example into the film, I think it was important, all the religious context of the society, and we have a lot of issues with that. In the same time was not the main problem, but I wanted also to bring something personal at that story, with the presence of Radouan in the character of Hadi. I am living with a French guy since now more than 10 years, and so I know what it means to be a gay person in Romania and to be a gay person in France, and also what kind of freedom you have, and also what kind of troubles you can live, and how the perception again of all around, it's different, and I wanted to put this in balance, and yeah, not saying that is good, that is not good, but just to show a bit of few perspectives of the same story somehow. Yeah.
Thank you. So you're thinking more of it's a discovery process in a way, right?
Exactly.
We will take questions from the audience in a second. I remember the last part of that question, which I thought it would be worth exploring, which is, how did storytelling function in all this? Because you have so many layers of stories, right? Some are resolved, others unresolved. We have this story that Cristi is telling about his grandmother going to prison, and we never find out what happened, right? And then we have a series of stories used in different ways by his colleagues that again are in an ambiguous space. Are they to connect to him or to tell him they know? So they created atmosphere of almost paranoia, even in the audience, in a sense. So how are you thinking with storytelling as a sub framework for the film?
Yeah, sorry, I was looking at the same time to the question.
Oh,
Roxana did, and I think I was not very.
It's no problem. You can answer Rosanna's question.
Yeah, no, I was. Yeah, I think in that, if I understood well the question, I think it was also the idea of not deciding if the colleagues know if he's gay or not, and just letting the possibility of this mysterious atmosphere. And because I think into that group of people, we had the discussion with a policeman that was in the gendarmerie before, and he said, of course there were stories, but nobody was talking about. So it's like we don't have to put it on the table and talk about. It's something that can happen, and there's a line in the scenario when someone says it's some man's duty to try, or something like this. Of course, a very macho line, but that's something that I think into a group like this, it's accepted because they are a family, and at the same time we don't want to know what you're doing in your intimate life. And that's why I didn't want it at the end for them to be very like discovering you're gay and now everything has changed. No, it's not changing like this. And a lot of times in the Q&As I had in festivals with the film, people were asking me about the end, for example, and what would have happened after. And I'm always saying that I don't think that someone's life can change in 24 hours. So I didn't want it to see after how he is with Hadi, or if they are arguing, or if they're making love, or if he's left, or so. It's another story, and it's not anymore the story of this film. And also, yeah, as I'm saying again, of course, he's receiving and understanding something of all that day, but unfortunately, in a society as Romania, and not just there, someone's life as a gay person will not change in one day.
And that's a great segue also in Roxana's question, who is giving us some background about legislation in the United States becoming more and more violent towards queer subjects. And the question is, I understand that in Romania legislators are attempting similar things, to ban education and whatnot. Are you worried about this move?
Yes, of course. We can see what is happening in countries of the European East, like Poland or Hungary, and also in Romania, we don't have any marriage possibility for LGBT persons, and not a civil partnership or something. So things are changing. I think that there were little steps that were good in Romania, for example, even of making this kind of films, for example, but not that, but more about what happened in 2018 with the referendum that hasn't passed, when the religious Orthodox people wanted to change in the constitution the definition of the family, and it hasn't passed. So fortunately, it was something that was not validated. But there's a danger in all that, and in all these extremist political parties that came up to, and all the issues that we still have to deal with. And there's a lot of anxiety that gives all that, and danger, and we can see it everywhere, unfortunately. Even in France or in countries like this, there's a lot of homophobia, and we are not maybe that surprised, but when it was in 2013, the law for the marriage between people of same sex, they were like, I don't know, I don't want to give a number, but a lot of people on streets against, and it was incredible in Paris.
Yeah, it's a worldwide situation, unfortunately. Yeah. We have a question from Libby. Yeah.
Yes, I actually thank you, Jen, for your time and the film. I also thought it was a very beautiful film, and I actually had a few questions. I'm going to be succinct, but the first one is kind of basic. I was curious about the title. I didn't know if it was referencing something or that I'm not like familiar with, but I was just wondering why the title.
Yeah, so it came from the shoot, from the when we shoot the scene in the cinema, when Cristi is in the middle of the red chairs of the cinema hall, and when Marius, the DOP, put that camera, and I have seen this little person in the middle of the red chairs, I said it looks like a poppy field. And it stayed like this after the editing, and I wanted to give this somehow poetical maybe title for giving also a bit of metaphor to all this.
Yeah, and I also, no, thank you for that. And I also was, it's interesting because we just had an event about Jewish history in Romanian film, and there's a lot of interesting parallels kind of between telling, Jewish stories in Romania and I think telling queer stories. And I was also curious and very interested with Hadi as a character, being of the kind of the non-dominant religious group. And I was also curious though, because I felt like the relationship between Cristi and Hadi, they had a lot of miscommunication, between the languages, and I think even their personalities are so different and their dispositions are so different. And I was just wondering, if Hadi is a little bit of a foil, I don't know, in a sense, because he's, maybe a little bit also unaware, like in the scene with the sister. I think if you hear Romanian or you speak a little bit, you can tell immediately that she's being kind of weird, but I think if you just watch the subtitles, you can't tell that she's kind of giving attitude. So yes. And he doesn't get that either in the scene, so if you could comment on that.
Yeah, I think he feels a bit like a puppet, Hadi, in that scene. So what should I do? What should I be? What should I, for making you feeling well and good? And he's trying to, because I think we don't, how to say, maybe, I'm not talking about the film, but something in real life, we cannot explain all the time why we love someone, and it's happening. And so I don't know, because a lot of people were like saying, yeah, but why this guy is staying with Cristi? Why? Because he has so many qualities, and that guy, he's so struggled, and then I don't know, maybe he's in a position also of someone who wants to save someone's life, because we are, as I said before, we can be victims and oppressors, but we can be also saviors, how we can say. Yes,
martyrs or saviors.
Yeah, and I think that's a triangle that it's happening there in this hierarchy.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Let me know if you do by raising your hand or maybe putting in the chat. Eugen, I have a question in the meantime, which is related to what you just said. The portrayal of almost everyone as a multifaceted and sometimes double personality, right? As victim and oppressor. And there is one character in there, which is the queer ex-date of Cristi, that yes. It appears as one of the victims of police abuse, right? And then becomes almost a metonym for how the queer community in Romania is fractured, does not always function with alliances, you know, and loyalties, and he becomes an image of danger, like someone who can out me, which is not, you know, quite aligned with queer politics in a sense. So it becomes almost an abuser of that, you know, secret and trust that it's understood. Was that in the initial scenario, or it was something that came out of the work you did?
It was at the beginning, because it's the main conflict of the film. So at the beginning, Joanna wanted to put this character as a gendarme into this event that was like the real event at the basis of the film, and how a gay person would react to an event like this if he has to intervene as a gendarme. But from that moment on, it had something new to happen. So, and the conflict was there if he would met someone he knew from his secret life. And yeah, that was there from the very beginning. It has changed and moved when we have worked with Joanna and with the actors. But yeah, for me, it's very important. And it's also, for example, that character for me, maybe it's talking more, the most about representation, and it's maybe not Cristi, it's the voice of the community in this film. That guy is the voice of the community.
And there's a related question to this, which is, I wonder if you and your team have thought about this while making the film, because of the ambiguity. And I mean, it's you know, Dostoevskian, right? Like no one is bad or good. We're all both of them and more than that at the same time. But there is again a politics of queer representation and whatnot. So the question I have is, in making his colleagues also nuanced and ambiguous characters that sometimes we connect to and we feel like they are making an effort, you know, to connect to him and accept him, how does that function in the context of Romania, where still police has been, you know, involved with actual hate crimes against queer people, or they have been just ignoring moments of violence against gay men and trans women especially, or even perpetuated it, right? So are we creating too much, I don't know, compassion or empathy towards his colleagues as complex beings, and therefore erasing what the institution they represent actually means to the queer community?
Yes, I'm not sure I understood everything. I
can simplify it.
Yes, please.
Some of these gendarmes are kind of, you know, almost cool guys in a way, in the whole ambiguity there. Making them, you know, characters with whom we can sympathize at some point. Are we erasing the fact that the institution they represent, this policing thing, is and has been violent towards actual Romanian queers in our history, right?
They have been violent, of course. They have been violent for me. So of course I want to talk also about the police abuse, but it's into that way of behaving, that it's without any importance, and that's grave. I don't know. It's not giving importance that makes it so difficult to understand. But what has happened after this event, for example, the good thing is that now Romania, because there was a process and Romania had to pay a trial to the European Court of Constitutional Court for Human Rights, and so that event in fact has been solved somehow, fortunately, and now it should be like in a kind of events like this, police had to intervene to protect the people who are in danger, like the LGBT people and the audience were at that cinema. So yeah, I didn't want to make good characters. I think it's just a lot of ignorance that they are having, and that is it's very bad, of course.
Thank you so much. I think we might be heading towards the end of the meeting. I want to ask you just one last question, which is there a question no one has asked you yet and you feel compelled to tell us something about the film that no one yet asked you and we should know? I just wanted to put it out there.
I was not thinking about that question.
That's all right.
I don't know. I don't know. I was thinking about maybe the idea of representation. What I keep from our discussion, maybe more than a question to put. It's all about representation as well, and I am interested into that topic, and I think it's important what we do, when, where, how, and we are responsible of our political acts as artists and activists too, into that kind of stories, because we can contribute somehow to this fight for equality and rights and freedom of expression.
I have one question now because of this answer. A lot of time, and we are in the US, we're used to this, using film and art, to kind of bring awareness to, social change and civic, movements and all this. And I feel like in Romania, they're still very shy about a number of things. Your film is showing, the opposite, right? But there's very few films, that do show the role of the artist actually to bring awareness, and cause social change actually, and reconstruct the civic society that was broken during communism. And not only, even before that. So I think we have a long tradition of lacking civic society, So it's surprising that it's still kind of shy, in all aspects. I feel like, looking at all the films that we're bringing. And Libby also mentioned the Jewish collective memory and the, Jewish Romanian history, also have Alina Sherban, with the Roma cause. So we are trying to amplify these voices, but I still feel like it's still kind of shy in every aspect.
Yeah, I agree with you. And in that point, even on this discussion, I want to invite my colleagues to talk more about that. I'm of course not the only one who is making things, but we have to be more and more, and how to say, not just gay people have to talk about gay people. So it has to be a bit more open, and I hope that one day director or a female director in theater or cinema would talk more about this, because it's important, and I'm doing it because it's something for me necessary in my own life also somehow. But I would like to see that there are projects on this topic, because that politically it's something to work for our society. So yeah, I hope there will be much more.
That is a really great last thought to end with, I think. So I want to thank you, Eugen, so much for engaging with my questions and our audiences. for your wonderful work. I think we all loved your film so much for how non-orientalizing it is, right? It's just the shock is that Cristi is a police officer, not that he is gay in a sense. So that was really beautiful work. Thank you for your thoughts, letting us know about your process. Thank you to all for joining us today.
Thanks to you too.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone. Great questions.
Mulțumesc.
Thank you.
La revedere.
Mulțumim.
Bye.
Noapte bună, mai bine.